Hey everyone, how's it going today and welcome to another episode. So in today's episode, we have to talk about something that's actually been making massive headlines on the news right now, which is basically everything going on related to the Saudi Arabia and then the US Petrodollar situation, because there are so many articles that are being spread right now that I think it's really important to clarify. So if you are someone that's either totally out of the loop and you don't know what's going on and you want to kind of learn about what's going on, or maybe you are someone that actually is very much into the loop, but you're just looking for a second opinion, then welcome aboard because you have come to the right video. Because in today's video, what I really want to talk about is really just explaining in simplified terms what exactly is happening right now over there in Saudi Arabia, between Saudi Arabia and the US petrodollar, and then maybe just some personal insights about it, and then also about whether or not this is real or fake news. Because the reality is that there is so much controversy and mixed news being thrown around right now that I think it's important to clarify what is right and what is not right. Because the real answer is it's kind of a blend of both. There is some information that is actually pretty much correct, but there's also some stuff that has been relatively misleading in the news, and I think that that's what I really want to spend today's video doing, explaining this. So with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, or watch to the end and decide from there if you guys hopefully enjoy updates like this, and let's get started. So to start by giving maybe a little bit of a background story of what's been going on is that essentially way back in June 8th of 1974, which is essentially about 50 years ago, the US and Saudi Arabia came to an agreement essentially on that particular date, June 8th of 1974, where what they were really going to do is that it was a deal that was actually technically lasting 5 years. So this is one of the parts that's actually a little bit misleading from a lot of other resources, is that it was actually a deal that originally was supposed to last for 5 years, but they simply kept extending it until today, which is where it basically ended up lasting for 50 years. The difference is that now they're deciding not to renew it. So I think that's another big difference, is that a lot of articles will talk about how the deal lasted for 50 years when it really lasted for 5 years, but was consistently extended until today. But that's probably not the important part that we really have to talk about. That's just one part of the information. The real important part is that what this deal involved was that it was in a trade agreement to basically exchange high-tech weapons at the time period, because the US was very, very well known for their military power. So what it was going to do is that it was going to trade the military weapons in exchange for Saudi Arabia's agreement to invest cash into treasuries. So it's not that they had anything to do with being forced to buy things with oil or anything like that in US dollars or anything like that. This was really basically just a trade agreement between military weapons and then the basically agreement to buy US treasuries. So it was kind of like an investing economic kind of way to grow the economies of both countries. That's what was the goal of this particular agreement. So that's really the big idea to what's happening. So I think it's really important to understand that the part that's really misleading is that there are so many articles right now that are talking about the fact that because this 50-year agreement ended, what it means is that the US is going to be losing dominance, because it means that Saudi Arabia is no longer going to be conducting trade with their oil in US dollars, which when the reality is that from the very, very start is that they never had to use the US dollar to begin with. So this was just something that was just totally not true from the very, very beginning. From like from the beginning of when they signed that particular agreement. So I think that's the part that's really important to clarify. Now, what it really means is that what the reality is that the Saudi Arabia really did actually end up using the US dollar to conduct trade with oil. But the reasons that they ended up doing this was not because they had to do it. It was because they decided to do it because at the time period, US basically had the dominant currency. At the time period, a lot of countries conducted trade in the US dollar. So it was never because they had to do it per se, but it was simply because it made sense in their incentive to conduct that trade. So why is this particularly related, and what does this mean for us as a country? Is it essentially is that there's a lot of people right now that are talking about how today, because they decided not to renew this agreement, it means that they're no longer going to trade things in the US dollar, which is totally not true. Because the reality is that very, very likely, at least the probability is that they're still going to be conducting trade in the US dollar currency. It's just that the difference is that they never had to do it to begin with. So this was just one of those things to really important, I think, to really be able to clarify about what's happening. Now, what does this actually mean for a lot of the other other countries as well is that it also does mean that because the US dollar to this day is still considered a very, very dominant power. Now, it is weakening, admittedly. There has been a rise of a lot of other countries that have now risen their currency as well. So it does mean that there is a chance that maybe Saudi Arabia will change the currency that they use. But the reasons if they were to change the currency that they use to trade oil is not going to be because of this 50-year agreement, but it's just going to be because maybe other currencies became an even greater powerhouse. That's what it really, really comes down to. So I hope this kind of maybe clarifies about what the situation is right now at this time that's going on between Saudi Arabia and the US dollar. So it has nothing to do with the 50-year trade agreement. What it is it essentially is that Saudi Arabia is now considering using other currencies, but the reason they're going to be using other currencies is not because of this trade agreement, but it's simply because of the rise in power of a lot of other alternative options that have now officially come up. Now, I do think that there is a lot of things that we do have to worry about when it comes to the US's economy. For example, like in the US right now, we are obviously facing a lot of other economic difficulties, such as like inflation, wages not keeping up with the cost of living, a very, very rough and poor job market, so many things. The elections are coming up very, very soon. There are so many, many things that I think the US has to fear right now, that I fear for my own country. And feel free to leave any comments about what you think about the current situation, because there is a lot of things that we have to worry about. The US may very, very much one day lose its dominance inside of our world as the powerhouse that it currently is today. And you're kind of already starting to see it a little bit. But again, going back, is the most important takeaway from this video is that if it was to lose dominance, the reasons it will lose dominance is not because of the Saudi Arabia oil kind of situation that a lot of resources are making it out to be. It'll be for a totally separate reason, probably likely one of the other reasons that I mentioned for why it might potentially lose dominance. But that's really the big idea right now that's going on to really, really understand about what's happening. So the idea is, yes, there are problems we have to face, but the oil situation, I think it's just important to understand that they're ending the agreement, but it doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily be a lot of problems that come up, right? So hopefully that kind of clarifies it. So with that being said, that's really what I wanted to share in today's video. So hopefully nothing too long or crazy. With that being said, if you guys made it to this point, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, subscribe, hit the like button, or you can decide feel free to leave a comment for any suggestions. We're probably going to be making other videos talking about general finance as well and things that are going on. I do maybe want to make an update to this particular video if more information comes out about what's going on with in terms of what Saudi Arabia decides to do. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.